that when you take a look at what happened with DeFi, it was a perfect storm. You know, you had much higher APRs than staking, and you had a lot more variety in who could build a DeFi solution. You had a lot more variety in their approach and how they could communicate that. And so instead of communicating like what is DeFi and how is this working, the communication dropped down to, this is what you get for doing it. Not what you're doing, not where the money is coming from, not why it's good for the ecosystem, just this is what you get. And so instead of it being like this back and forth conversation, it became like, hey, this is what I get from this, and this is why this is important. Versus, you know, staking, when we were having this conversation, it was with cypherpunk manifesto references and, you know, pulling out our Satoshi, our Bitcoin mugs, and like all like, you know, this old school conversation like around this is important because, you know, we're like building this, you know, decentralized future. With like DeFi, it's like, oh, how much can I make? And that was the focus, and people lost sight of where was that money coming from? You know, it's coming from somewhere. And impermanent loss, you know, tokens that may not necessarily have value being distributed, the way that fees were charged and distributed were not communicated well because there's no incentive to. And then APRs, they're not stored well. There's no decentralized repository of like, historically, what has the APR been? Is a 1,000 APR enough? You know, is that enough to overcome impermanent loss? And I think what happened is you had people coming in, didn't know how the system worked because there was no education effort around it. We saw there's a 1,000% APR on this thing. They dropped in $1,000 and they walk away with $500 and they go, how is that 1,000% APR? And you go, oh, impermanent loss and value, and the value of the token that you got went down. And they go, but that's not 1,000% APR, and people got burned. And so now they're turning back to the thing that was educated for years before.